Hey guys, this is Comic Uno episode 76, and this is a show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. So I go worst pick of the week to best pick of the week. This week I got 16 comics, so it's kind of a normal amount. Thank God we're not going to 25 again. I'm sure when I say that next week I'll have 25. But this week there's 16 comics. Let's talk about worst pick of the week. Number 16 is Earth 2 World's End, issue 10. There's just a lot of things that bored me here. The art was okay at places. Good examples here, just not a lot of detail in a lot of the art, and it's very jumpy, the way the issue is structured. There's about 10 stories in one issue, 2 pages for each story. It's same structure as Future's End, except there's less stories that were interesting here. So the only story I would say that was actually good, but there was just not enough pages here for, was Lois Lane meeting up with Clark again, Huntress becoming one of the Furies, and people reacting to that. But again, that's like 3 pages, 4 max, and that's the only story you get. 1 page of finding out maybe Barbara's dead. We don't know. It seems like she's dead. You don't get any more story with that. It's going to take another 3 issues to progress that story. And then we get stuff with the World Army and Darkseid's son. We get some stuff with Green Lantern and how he's dealing with the Furies and his dead fiance. And that's pretty much it. I just thought there's too much jumpingness. Again, the artwork was okay, and the only story I really liked was the Barbara story, which we got no progression to, and the Lois and Clark, the regular team story. So the way this is structured, it's going to Future's End. It's not smart. Just give us 3 stories. That way you actually can tell a full story. Was very disappointed with this one. Most of the stories were very boring. I gave Earth 2 World's End 2 stars. This was definitely worst pick of the week. Number 15. Another really boring issue. Spider-Man and the X-Men, issue 1. Now, the question is, was this just for publicity? Was it just for, a title to get a lot of money, even though there's not a lot of substance here? Do we need a Spider-Man X-Men title? No, we really don't. This is just to have X-Men and Spider-Man, their 2 biggest franchise, having 1 title. This is definitely a filler title. You don't need it, and they just needed someone's name to be on this because Wolverine's dead. And that's kind of how it felt. There's some interesting things. There's 2 interesting parts here. Spider-Man trying to figure out who the mole is for the X-Men. And also I thought the cliffhanger, the new Savage Island was interesting, that it's Staten Island. So that kind of intrigued me to get the next issue, but I still don't think I will, because there's too much dialogue on a page. I was reading it, I was like, I really don't care. Especially since we have 4 other Spider-Man titles that were just so much better this week, and I was reading it and I was just like, this is so boring. Nothing's happening. There's nothing unique here. There's just not, again, what I just said. There's nothing unique about this series. You do not need a Spider-Man X-Men title. It was just a sorry excuse to have one. Artwork was pretty good. I'll give a compliment on that, but look how busy these 2 pages are. It takes a while to read them because there's just so much dialogue that means nothing. And honestly, like when I was reading a good issue, I was like, oh, this had a lot of dialogue, but it actually means stuff. This is just like them talking and talking. So I'm not going to talk more about it, but Spider-Man and the X-Men, issue 1, 2 stars. That I just was very bored with it. Alright, let's move on to number 14, which is Charmed Season 10, issue 3. I'm kind of disappointed with this series. I know people have been enjoying it, maybe because I didn't read Season 9. That could be a reason I'm not enjoying Season 10 as much, but I do like Charmed. But the one thing I don't like about this series is I feel like it's too much about the magic. What I liked about Charmed is that you always had some personal problem. And there's no personal problems here. It's just like, oh, we're the charmed ones. Let's go here. Let's go there. My husband's dealing with the kids. There was never an arc where it's like, oh, well, Paige has to deal with this white lighter. How does Paige feel about this? How does the white lighter feel about it? It's just kind of mentioned. There's no real emotional beats here. And I think that's what I don't love about Charmed Season 10. But there is a lot of magic here. If you're a Charmed fan, I'm a Charmed fan. I just always like the idea of digging into that character, and I don't feel that here. And also the artwork is very plain. I don't know, I just can't get into this series, even though I am a Charmed fan, and this was a Paige type issue, and she is my favorite character from Charmed. but there just wasn't enough meat here for me. So I'm going to give it 2.5 stars, and I think I am going to drop Charmed. I don't know, I just can't get into it. Alright, I think we're up to number... You're up to number 13, which is... Bitch Planet. Issue 1. So, Bitch Planet is a Kelly Sue DeConnick series, and really the only reason I was getting it was because of that. I know she's a very popular writer. I like what she's doing with Captain Marvel. I read Pretty Deadly's first issue, didn't really like it that much, but I was like, alright, let me give Bitch Planet a try, and I heard like really good things about it. With this issue, there is a lot of nudity. I'll tell you that. Is there unnecessary nudity? Probably, and I'll give it that, but there's probably some feminist statement because of it. That's at least what I saw reading it. It's a very feminist book. So with Bitch Planet, it's about these women on another planet in jail. Now the one thing, the reason it's so low for me, I thought the artwork was really well done. I think that's the reason it didn't get lower than it is. Artwork fits the title, coloring fits the title very well. I'll give you a last page for that too. Here's the last page. I like the structure of the issue too. I like that you don't find out who the main character is until the end. It's like, oh yeah, this is a person we're going to follow. You think you're going to follow this white girl, but it's, you know, this girl. So I like that idea because it's pretty much focusing, it's really poking fun at Orange is the New Black. And that's what the series is about, is poking fun at that show. It's like, oh, we're following this white girl, and actually the series writer said the only reason she added Piper was because they were afraid that if they had a black main character, it wouldn't get picked up. And that's what the showrunner said. But I think it pokes fun at that. It's like, hey, we can have a black main character. Now, the reason I didn't like it is, you know, even though it, you know, has so much promise, I just think it's too much like Orange is the New Black. I think it focuses too much on, like, poking fun at the show. And there's no real character development here. You know, the reason I love Orange is the New Black is because there's so much character development. It's all about the character. And here, you never connect to anybody. It's just the idea of Bitch Planet. And there was nothing that really hooked me to the character, and I think that is the problem of having a cliffhanger like that, to meet the main character on the last page. Even though I think structure-wise and writing-wise it's something unique, it was hard to really connect with the book. You know, I saw people love the series and everything, but I just couldn't get into it. I don't think it's my style. You know, as much as I like Orange is the New Black, it just doesn't seem like this is my type of title. So, overall, Bitch Planet, I see why people could like it, but it's just not my thing. So, 2.5 for Bitch Planet, and I don't think I'll be getting the next issue. Alright, so let's move on to number... We're going to move on to number 12, which is Future's End, issue 32. So Future's End, there was some good stuff here, but mostly boring stuff. But why it's higher than the other stuff is because, you know, there's at least 1 or 2 pages that are semi-interesting. We get to see, you know, more Batman Beyond, so if you miss him, he's in this issue. What I did like, though, is that we get to see Grifter and Lana. They're pretend married, and they're trying to work together. That way, Grifter doesn't get in trouble with the people arresting her 2 people, so that was kind of cool. 50 Sue, she's dressed up as Deathstroke. She wants to kill people. If you're a 50 Sue fan, I guess you like that. But yeah, overall, you just get to see that. Firestorm still trying to un-Firestorm and de-Firestorm, and she still can't do it. And then we have more of the Frankenstein stuff. It's like, oh no, the world's gonna end. And that's the end of the issue. World's gonna end with Frankenstein and the crew. So yeah, I mean, I didn't love this issue because there's just so much story that I don't care about, like Batman Beyond, Mr. Terrific, that ending story of Frankenstein. It's all characters, or especially with the Frankenstein story, it's all characters that their title was canceled, and now they're just all thrown into Future's End. Like, if their title was canceled, don't you think that's a fact? That's the reason people weren't interested in it? But of course, you know, they have the cult following, so that's why, you know, some people are going to be very interested in Future's End, but I don't think the overall people reading DC are interested in these characters. But things I did like, again, I liked the Grifter Lana story, thought that was interesting, and I guess the Batman Beyond stuff was okay, but overall, This issue could have been a lot better. And the artwork is better than the other titles that were below this. That's why it got a bit higher. And also, I like the Firestorm story, even though that was one page. The way this series is organized is the same way as Earth 2. Why do you keep doing this? Just tell 3 stories that we get something out of it. So Future's End, issue 32, 2.5 stars. Alright, let's move on to number... We are up to number 11, which is Justice League United, issue 7. Here we go. Justice League United, issue 7. I thought this was good. I like the actual Justice League United. Those are the characters I'm interested in, but why it's a bit lower is because I'm not really interested with Legion of Superheroes, and it's a little bit boring for me because of that, but the artwork is really well done. I understand what story they're trying to tell. They're trying to save the kid, and that really is the story. It's the Legion of Superheroes, Justice League United, they're teaming up to save this kid. Artwork's good. I like the chemistry between the teams, but I think because I'm not a Legion of Superheroes fan, that's the reason I'm not loving this story arc, but it's not bad. I'm gonna stick with it because I like Justice League United. I don't really want to miss anything, and I think there's one more issue left. So overall, I'm not loving the story arc, but just because Justice League United, I'll stick with it. So Justice League United, it wasn't horrible. Artwork's good, but I think you have to be a fan of Legion of Superheroes. So 3 stars for me. Alright, let's move on to number 10, which is, too bad it fell, which is Goddess Inc. issue 5. Goddess Inc., I liked it. I thought it was a good issue. We get to see the ending of Venus. She doesn't win. You see people switch sides, and Venus ends up in hell, pretty much, and she meets up with Death. So there's definitely an open-ended story, because now the gods are going to try to bring everything back to normal, and is that possible? But this is a mini-series, so you don't know when it's going to continue, so that's a bit upsetting. But artwork was good. I thought it was a fun story, and I definitely recommend the mini-series. I thought overall the mini-series was very fun, especially if you like Greek god stuff. So for me, Goddess Inc. issue 5, I thought it was pretty good. I gave it 3.5 stars. Alright, I think we're up to number... You're up to number 9, which is Thor, issue 3. Another good issue. I liked it. You know, it wasn't explosive. It couldn't get to that 4 stars. But I like the moments we actually see the new Thor. I liked her mind frame, and also still hiding the secret identity. Who the hell this girl is, I don't know. I still think it's either a nobody from Earth, or it could be Jane. Some people are guessing Thor's mother, but the dialogue within her mind doesn't seem like Thor's mother, so I do think it's an Earthling, but we'll see. So does anyone know when this is going to be revealed? If you do, let me know in the comments. But I like the issue. It was a good cliffhanger with Thor and Thor. They're going to go verse each other, so that's going to be fun. But why this is a bit lower is because of the Frost Giants. I did not care about their dialogue. The first 3 pages is just the Frost Giants babbling. Like, I really don't care about you guys. I want to see what's going on with Thor. So I don't really care about the Norse villains. I think that was the biggest problem, because I don't love Norse god stuff. I mean, it's lucky enough that I like this series. I think it's because of that mystery element of who this girl is, and that's what I'm liking about it. But overall, I don't love the Norse stuff. So the Frost Giants having their own story is stuff I wasn't personally interested in. But very excited for Thor vs. Thor, and there was some really great dialogue between the new Thor to kind of learn a little bit more about her. And also artwork's beautiful for this series. I love the art. The action is just great for this series. I'll show you another page. So I gave Thor 3.5 stars, and I'm excited to see who the story is soon, and the Thor vs. Thor fight. Alright, let's move on to number 8, which is something I usually don't pick up. Avengers World, issue 16. So what did I think about Avengers World? You know, I liked it. Again, this is a series I usually don't pick up, but I thought it was very easy to get into. You really didn't have to read the previous issues to understand what's going on. But the reason I got Avengers World was because of a return of a certain character, which was Cassie Lang. So how does this happen? Most of the issues about Scarlet Witch being trapped, not really working. Scarlet Witch is still totally evil, but Dr. Doom having enough power to change one thing. And he's like, oh, well, I could change my face, I could change my personality, I could change all these things, but what I should change is killing this innocent girl, which is Cassie. And now we're going to see that story continue in Ant-Man. So, you know, I thought it was kind of easy for Dr. Doom's like, I should pick Cassie. Oh, of course, that's going to be the person I pick. Like, I thought it was a bit weird that was the sin that he chose. There's so many other things he's done, but why Cassie? I guess because, like, this innocent girl like Valeria, but I thought it was a bit easy. But overall, I liked the issue. I thought the action was pretty good towards the beginning. Really, really good art here. And, of course, the cliffhanger, the emotional beats for the cliffhanger was great. And I can't wait to read Ant-Man. I'm a big Cassie Lang fan, big Young Avengers fan. So, excited to see where this goes. So, overall, Avengers World, I gave 3.5 stars. And I think I'll give the next issue a try. I thought it was a pretty solid series. Alright, so let's move on to number 7, which is Batman Eternal, issue 36. So what did I think about this issue? I liked it. You know, I think it was very close to being 4 stars. There's a lot of great moments here. Seeing the Bat family together again, learning more about Bard and why he does the things he does, and then having a cliffhanger of Hush saying, hey, you're going to go totally nuts. And the Riddler playing the pieces for Batman going nuts. Is the Riddler the person who's the head of this? Maybe that's what the cliffhanger is about, but maybe he's just another pawn also. But it would be interesting if it was Riddler, but I'll be like, 0 year again. Do I really want to see that? I don't know. But overall, there's a lot of great tension, a lot of great character moments. I love seeing the Bat family together. I think it's pretty rare when that happens. And it's also great to hear more about Bard and learn more about his character. Even though he's not the true villain, I think he's an interesting pawn. I think the reason it didn't get to 4 stars, though, is that, you know, the series has a bit weird coloring, and the artwork could be a bit better. It's a little cartoony, the art, but overall the story was really well done. So 3.5 stars for Batman Eternal, very close to 4 stars. Alright, let's move on to number 6, which is The Amazing Spider-Man issue 1 annual. I really enjoyed this. The reason that it wasn't a bit higher was the last 2 stories. So the last 2 stories is about Aunt May, some cartoon thing, and then Spider-Man getting laryngitis. Now, the one thing I did like about the first story, which I'll get into, is that it's fun, and it's a good break with Spider-Verse, because I think we've been getting a little bit too many story arcs since Superior Spider-Man, jumping into Spider-Verse. You haven't had a fun issue of Spider-Man in a really long time. So to have this issue just be plain fun, plain old friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, I thought was good. I think it's a good change. So the first story was hilarious. It's most of the issue, which is great, and that's why it's a bit higher this issue. But why it didn't get to maybe 4 stars is because of the $4.99 price tag. But what is this first story about? Is about Spider-Man finding this phone and wanting it to return it to their owner. And he has to go through all these hurdles. He teams up with Hawkeye for a while, which was hilarious. And then he ends up returning the phone and still, you know, screwing up in his own life as Peter Parker. So artwork was so good. The story was hilarious. And again, it's just a fun Spider-Man story that I just really miss because we've been getting so many story arcs with Spider-Man, which is great because we're getting more story progression. But I miss the fun old one-shot issues of Spider-Man every once in a while too. And especially about his own life, which we haven't seen in a while either. So Amazing Spider-Man Annual, 3.5 stars, close to 4 stars again. But there are some negatives to the issue. But definitely pick this up if you want fun Spider-Man. Alright, let's talk about number 5, which is a really weird number 5. I'm actually shocked that this made number 5. It made my top 5. I'll explain why. Batgirl, issue 37. Issue 37. The reason Batgirl made top 5 was, first of all, there was like a lot of lacking books this week. Even though what was below Batgirl were good books, I just felt like I wanted to put Batgirl here because there are things that interest me in this series. I like how stylish the book is. I like the story. I'm intrigued with like who wants to know Batgirl's identity, who knows Batgirl's identity, showing her being in a wheelchair and someone knowing that and putting that in an art gallery. I like her supporting cast, but the bling bling villain, could have lived without that. So there are negatives to this book, of course. Batgirl's character changed overnight for no reason. I still want a reason. That's a negative. Another negative, the villain Could have been so much better. It was very weird, the villain. But I want to hear who this overall villain is. I'm intrigued by that mystery. And I like this Batgirl. I like her even though she's different. I still want the explanation of why she's different. But I think she's an interesting retcon to Barbara. So overall, I kind of like Barbara here. I like how they use her photogenic memory. So there are positives to this book, and it is a fun book. But then there's negatives. So I am so conflicted with this book. But I think it deserved number 5 for this week. I kind of like where the story's going, but there's so many ridiculous things here at the same time. But the positive does outweigh those ridiculous things. So we'll see where this series goes. But Batgirl was number 5. Really surprisingly, it's number 5. Alright, we'll see where that goes. Very conflicting. Alright, let's go on to number 4. Sinergy, issue 2. I feel like Sinergy this week was a bit lacking from the first issue, because the first issue really blew my mind. I thought it was a great issue. Sinergy issue 2 does move the plot forward, though. The main character, Jess, still liking her boyfriend, who's a monster, and her trying to figure out what to do. Does she go to college, her relationship with her father now and her mother, and kind of figuring out this world. You know, things I didn't like about this issue, you know, there were some structure problems. I didn't really like how they had, like, another seer, and they were trying to defeat him, and he kind of looked like Jessica a lot, so I thought that was a bit weird, but overall, and also the selfies, like, I could have lived without that. But the artwork's really good. I think it fits the title very well, and I'm really intrigued to see where the series goes. I think this is a very promising series, and there's a lot of great nuggets here to learn more about Jess and this world. So 4 stars for me for Sinergy. Alright, let's move on to number 3, which is just a very fun issue this week, and that was Spider-Verse Team Up issue 2. 2 great stories, which I think is a rarity with these team-up type books. Usually it's one that's really good or another one that's lacking, or they're both lacking, but both stories were really great here. The first story being with Miles' Ultimate Spider-Man, the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, and the 1960s cartoon Spider-Man, and them having their universes or their characters meshed together. It's in the 1960s universe, them trying to get this Spider-Man to come on their team to get away from Damon and the crew, the Inheritors, and just, you know, making fun of old cartoons, making fun of Ultimate Spider-Man, making fun of Miles. It was hilarious. It was just a really great, fun story. So yeah, I love that first story. If you don't like these cartoons, you'll love this. If you love these cartoons, you'll love it. So I think it's best of both worlds here. So yeah, just a really fun, funny issue for that first story. Second story has a bit more of an emotional beat to it. It's Gwen meeting the Hobgoblin Peter Parker, and them both regretting making the other person die in their own universe. So having Gwen regret her Peter dying, and having Hobgoblin Spider-Man turn into Hobgoblin because Gwen dies, and he rips his Spider-Man costume apart, and he believes he can't be Spider-Man anymore. And I think they developed that character so well in just a couple pages. Now, when he dies in the end, you care. You do. You're like, oh, like, you kind of connect him, and you feel what Gwen's feeling here. And he's like, you know what? Don't worry. You know, it was cool seeing you again. I'm glad that I could redeem myself in these last couple of pages. And he really does in these last couple of pages here. And I thought that was just a really touching story for both those characters. And again, you really fall in love with the character that you only know for a couple of pages. And I think every Spider-Verse story should do that, but it doesn't. And obviously, it's understandable because there's so many Spider people that die in this story arc. But they do it in a great way with this team up. So both stories, you know, delivering something different, but both being great. So 4 stars for me for Spider-Verse team up, very close to 4.5. All right, let's go to number 2. And I gotta say, both these 2 issues were great, and it was really hard to pick from both of them. But I had to weigh the negatives to see which one should be number 2 and which one should be number 1. So number 2 is The Amazing Spider-Man issue 11. This was very close to being number 1. Again, it was very conflicting. It was number 1 for a while, and then I switched it. Amazing Spider-Man. Artwork, great. I love that they fixed May's face a bit, because I remember her face was very puffy, but they fixed that with this issue, which I was happy to see. She looks more like May should look. But with this issue, I like, obviously, Superior Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, having at it. They're fighting, everything we're waiting for, an epic fight between them, and then end up saying, alright, we should team up. Alright, Spider-Man, you could be leader, I guess. And Amazing Spider-Man kind of being superior here. Especially if he wants to survive. If Superior Spider-Man wants to survive. And then the middle of the issue is kind of just putting more Spider-Man in different areas so you can focus on certain Spider-Man, which I think is very smart because that was a complaint for that last issue for me, is that there was too many Spider-Man in one issue. Now here we're getting a little bit more of maybe like 5 characters coming together, and they're all going their different ways. So I like that. And then, of course, the last part of Cosmic Spider-Man dying, which is really upsetting, but I love the way he dies, and artwork was so good at that point. But the last page, man, May Parker fan, Benji is the 3rd Spider-Man that they need to kill, the Scion, and May's like, Benji, no, what do I do? So it's going to be, with the next issue, May just really fighting for her brother, and I think she will survive because she's in the Spider-Man Team Up issue 3, which is after the next issue, so let's hope May survives, and I hope Dan Slott keeps the main character, really fighting for Benji in a May type way, and I think some of the best issues of Spider-Girl are the point where she goes up against someone that's so out of her league, but she does it because of her strength and hope, and I hope we get to see that with the next issue. Really get to see Spider-Girl win here and fight for her brother, because that's the most important thing, is her family, and she might be rageful because of it, but hopefully it's not too out of character like some of the things she has been saying in the Amazing Spider-Man story. But overall, that cliffhanger makes me very excited as a Spider-Girl fan, and can't wait for the next issue, and this issue was so epic, I loved it. Definitely so far the best issue of the Amazing Spider-Man, so 4.5 stars for me. Or best issue for Spider-Verse. Alright. Number 1. Grimm Fairy Tales, issue 105. You know, this is really hard, but I think Grimm Fairy Tales is organized a bit better than Amazing Spider-Man. I think they were trying to fit a lot of story in Amazing Spider-Man still, but I liked Grimm Fairy Tales because there's a lot of great emotional beats here, and learning more about this nymph character, this new character, and seeing her full power, seeing her mother die right in front of her, and I like how they went back to flashbacks of her still feeling she's a freak, and still having this problem with her mother and being this nymph. So I like that. Also, we get a connection of what's going to happen next with Grimm Fairy Tales is, I think her name is Barda, not sure, someone with a B, one of the main characters who used to be a villain. Is she a villain again, or is she still, or is she like a mole? What is she? And the nymph having to deal with that, so, and knowing that fact. So artwork was beautiful here too, and I just thought this was such a great character issue. So Grimm Fairy Tales was number 1. Very, very hard to choose between Grimm Fairy Tales and Amazing Spider-Man. They're both very on par this week. But you know, just organizational wise, I think Grimm Fairy Tales was the better issue. So I gave Grimm Fairy Tales 4.5 stars. Hope you guys enjoyed. This was Comic Uno episode 76. Of course, I'll have episode 77 next week. This is Comic Uno. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter for Comic Uno and the Rand Situations. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there's links for my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page for Like Father, Like Daughter. And let me know in the comments, what was your worst pick of the week, best pick of the week, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.